Best to keep my voice intact for this one. And what a patch we have. We are here for the LJL Spring Split Finals. It all comes down to this: Sengoku versus DFM. DFM being their returning champs, but Sengoku already taking a series off of them earlier on in this playoff run. So DFM have their chance at their losers redemption match here. This will be everything that this is Sengoku's opportunity to dethrone DFM. Coming into this one, you've beaten them once. Can you run it back a second time? Remains to be seen. Now, predictions going forward on this one. Before yesterday's games, I did have DFM as the favorites. I expected them to come back strong. I did expect a bit of just clear headspace moving forward. But there were a couple of the games that I watched from DFM in yesterday's series that even though they did come out on top, it was 3-1, it was not as clean as you might like, and especially into a team like Sengoku, you cannot afford to make the mistakes that you did. Game 1, especially of the DFM V3 series, stands out in my mind, as there were just multiple times where we were watching DFM just make some interesting calls all the way around the map that I really just can't seem to that ended up almost costing them more. There were situations where they should have been able to close out the game much sooner. And you compare that to Sengoku DFM's game 1 of their series earlier on this split, and it is not comparable at all. Sengoku were in a more than dominant position. In game 1 especially, I believe the kill count only rounded up to somewhere as far as 2-7, I believe. And with Sengoku's favor, and they were, or no, it was about 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 the entire game. They rolled one ending team fight. They played the game clinically. Sengoku did not overextend. They maintained their composure from start to finish, and it ended up making all the difference in their ability to ultimately win the series out. Now, DFM also had some composed moments throughout that, but you compare that to their series versus V3, and it starts to become a bit more questionable. The other thing is you cannot expect a team like Sengoku to make the same mistakes that V3 did. Criticized a little bit V3 yesterday, as there was just, as things started falling apart, and they fell apart harder and harder as that series went on, and DFM were able to sweep. Had V3 maintained composure all the way through and had matched up to the way they had played Game 2 yesterday, it could have been a very different series, and that makes me question DFM going forward. So, coming into this match, I definitely had DFM at 3-2 over Sengoku, but the more that I look at it now, and the more that I'm starting to consider that DFM may be a little bit shaken, I'm actually going to go out here. I'm going to give it to Sengoku on a 3-2 breakdown. If I was being 100% honest, I believe if Sengoku are to win, it is very likely that they will be able to eke away with even a 3-1 if they are able to maintain just a confident composure. But if Sengoku has found a winning strategy into the way that DFM constantly likes to play, where Aphelios is a must-have for DFM's win cons, it feels like, or just Scaling champs, the wait and see kind of strategy is something that will be very good for Sengoku, or excuse me, for DFM going forward. If they've had success on it, they'll need to draft it into again. The scary part comes from if Sengoku has found answers to it within the new patch, DFM are going to be in a lot of trouble. They've kind of shown that that's the strategy that works for them. They're going to run it time and time again. But we have not seen DFM have a lot of success in other strategies. They don't really play the first to the punch kind of strategies that a lot of other teams typically try to employ on themselves. So we'll have to see where things go. I think a lot of these drafts will actually end up going towards scaling sections, and we will see games kind of take on that longer play route. And it'll remain to be seen, but both of these teams are very good about taking an early advantage and kind of just moving it the rest of the way through. Both teams play very respectful of each other. And perhaps that's something that V3 had that Sengoku didn't, is that sort of mentality that we may be behind, but we can just play it through. We can just we can try something. And it didn't work exactly for V3, but they kept the game very close. Sengoku cannot get stagnant on after a losing early game and just say, this one's kind of chalked. They need to be able to stay composed and look for opportunities back into this game, because we've seen that DFM are willing to offer them. I think the other thing going forward into this series is you cannot rely on the mid lane matchup being as stiffly in the favor of Seros as it was in the game prior for DFM, of course. Hold on one moment. Where's my... Okay, sorry about that. But of course, one thing going into this game is that Pyrion is far from the slouch that is not to say that V3's mid is a slouch by any means, but Pyrion has been showing up a lot throughout this season, is very willing to go toe-to-toe with somebody like Seros, and is not sort of deterred by the prominence surrounding him. So for Sengoku moving into this, you can't expect, a 30 CSD on the mid lane champions. You cannot expect Seros to have basically accrued a kill and a half worth of gold purely just to superior laning. Alright, and as we're preparing to get underway here, one more time for anyone just tuning in, predictions for right now, I want to believe that Sengoku are willing to take this again, putting them at 3-2. But I do believe a strong possibility in a Sengoku 3-1. We did hear Rebel talk about that earlier, as he believe he is the only one currently with holding Sengoku at a possible 3 as the victor coming out of this. DFM are of course the historical favorites, but Sengoku has shown that DFM can fall. They've shown the opportunity. If it bleeds, it can fall. And that is kind of going to be the opportunity that Sengoku has going into this game, or into this series. The other question is, of course, we did see Seros going for some unorthodox picks in the mid lane. We did see the Xerath coming out in the first match there. And you have to wonder if DFM are willing to kind of play around like that, try new things against a team like Sengoku. Of course, you know, there is something to be said for staying loose and trying to, you know, keep things loose and interesting on that first game so that you don't end up psyching yourself out. But this is Sengoku, where can you really even begin to afford giving away a game like that? Some of the other LJL merch for any of you so inclined. I do really like the other shirt. I think that's actually pretty clean as well, actually. I do. Simplicity in design. I do actually really like that one. Was a big fan of the other one. The sort of symboled one, which I believe is the same as the mouse pad. I don't know if he'll be showing that one off on stream again, but is an opportunity there. Oh, here we are. Yeah, I do like the shirt that has the same text font on it. The all for the win. So honestly, the LJL has some very clean merch for this spring split, as the unfortunate thing is, of course, no MSI this year, so this will be the last match of this split until Summer Split starts up again for all of these teams, as we won't have any MSI representatives. We are going to be starting up here shortly, but this is going to be one of those matches that, if it's somewhat interesting, right? Is I think the first game will definitely be super indicative of how things will go, in that the first game of their round 2 series was clean, clinical. The first game only ending with about 9 kills. Both teams played very just cleanly all the way through, respected the leads, and they played the advantages well enough to just end the game on a solid note. The sort of that you would expect that to come about again, but the elements are also different. You are online in a tournament now, so there's some mechanics issues that will sort of come into play there. There is also the issue of the environment change. You are now, while you're also on finals. This is your play, this is the playoff title that you're battling for, which may begin to encourage a bit of... If the first game were to be a bloodbath, I would not exactly be surprised. I guess we'll put it that way. The first game of yesterday's series was much the same, so it's not too far out of the question by any means. I think a telling sign for a lot of this series will sort of transition throughout the map as each game sort of progresses. A great thing that DFM were able to capitalize on in the V3 series was every time that Archer was out of position, it ended up costing V3 immensely, as they were able to punish it very well. In a series like this, you can't rely on him to make the same mistakes, but if DFM have that same kind of killer instinct, that ability to just lock on to a mistake that is made and immediately look to punish, that is how you're going to find a win in this series. Same light, of course, Sengoku very capable of that, so the room for error is small, especially, like we said, in an online environment where sometimes the mechanics suffer a bit. It's going to be a hard-fought battle. I will also say, I've been trying to find a way to order that drink without it costing about $60 in shipping and handling since the start of this split. I have not found a way, but if anyone does, let me know. I have been dying to try it purely because I have been looking at the advertisement through the entire spring split. That being said, of course, once again, we're rolling through the comp. You know them, you love them. Sengoku Gaming taking on DFM. Now, the other thing that I do enjoy a lot about both of these teams specifically is I really enjoy both of their sort of jungle prowess in these kinds of games. In my opinion, I do believe Sengoku does have the stronger jungle in this kind of a matchup. I think Steel, we've seen series games rather during the spring split where he was tracked and locked down throughout the entire series. Most notably, I can remember was their DFM's first loss into, I want to say it was either V3 or Axes, but I do remember that Steel was sitting on the Olaf and was just tracked throughout most of the early game. They were using the Elise to just burn his cooldowns and keep him off the map throughout the entire game. And you had never seen an Olaf have lower impact than in that kind of a game. Meanwhile, I can't think of any of the games where Sengoku's jungle was nearly as exploited. And that isn't to say that Steel is overall a weak jungler. I do not think he is by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he definitely has a comfort pool of champions that I think is slightly more limited than the side of Sengoku. Blank, of course, has a decent amount of experience on him in general, but it will remain to be seen how everything is going to stack up. The other sort of important point, but I think that will shift its relevancy towards the later end of the game, is in the bot lane. Yutoromeyashi and NT both have a very good track record across the split. I will always say that on the side of DFM, Yutapon and Gang sometimes don't exactly have the best solo lane performances, but their jungle assist and setting up ganks has always been very well played. But as we load into picks and bans here, Sengoku banning away the set to kick things off. Looks like the Ver is going to be taken away by DFM, removing that flex pick option. Sengoku getting to start on the red side. Due to them winning earlier in this playoff series. It's going to be a benefit that they have, although it is an interesting note that blue side actually has a higher win rate throughout the entirety of the playoffs so far. It's DFM going to ban away Graves here. An understandable ban after they were able to see what Boogie was able to do on the Graves in the V3 series. Sengoku also keeping the Renekton off the table. With the rise of the Bork on melee top laners, Renekton especially has kind of risen to power. The empowered W with that Bork passive deals a lot of damage very quickly. I will say, on the side of Sengoku, I would almost like to have seen them wait off of the double top lane ban to see if you can bait DFM into banning one of those two away. But minor draft notes aside, LeBlanc will be rounding out the last ban. So the first pick, Sengoku opt into a Trundle on the blind pick, kind of inviting DFM to lock in the Ornn. I am not a huge fan of the Trundle on a blind, but it does early lock in your jungle position, forces DFM to look towards their jungler as they lock in the Aphelios and the Kindred to start things off here. DFM continuing their sort of unorthodox champion pool. Now, we had seen Kindred rise to power a bit in the recent time, and it does help opt out of a lot of the tanks that had grown, or a lot of the tanky, drafting the Kindred means you don't have to draft into a tanky jungler. You can still, of course, pick up Ornn for the top lane, but sort of deterred by the Trundle lock-in. DFM also going to be looking up the Yuumi. Would be a little bit of an interesting one, as the execution will now be on Yutapon on this bot lane. Any engage from NT that ends up going their way, there's not a whole lot of tools to help them out there, as well as Steal on Kindred does not offer a whole lot of help to that sort of lane, unless, of course, the Aphelios has the correct weapons to help out. It's a little bit difficult to be purely damage in the gank there. Zoe going to be banned away from Sengoku here, and understandably so. Right now, Sengoku cannot opt into a comp that moves forward into DFM. Kindred, a great champion for controlling space, utilizing that ultimate to really stand your ground. And with Aphelios having Chakram turrets as well to just keep whoever wants to advance on them at bay. Amazing kiting. DFM have a comp that is very good at staying stuck in place, and the counter to that is typically a lot of these poke champions, but with Varus and and Zoe both banned away. The Victor soon to follow removes a couple of those options immediately from the side of Sengoku. Now Nar also going to be banned away from DFM here. And now Sengoku are in somewhat of an interesting position where Ornn will probably go unpicked, unbanned in this series, as DFM aren't going to willingly lock it in while they're still looking at the Trundle in the hands of Sengoku here. But Sengoku also not really looking for that kind of an engage when what is the Ram really going to accomplish into a Kindred Aphelios? DFM are going to lock in the Aatrox, and that one's a little bit of a head scratcher. It is coming in off of a blind Aatrox, but the sort of interesting end of things is how does the Aatrox sort of play back to the Kindred? And the answer is really not very well, but Sengoku looking up their next pick. It is going to be the Azir locked in, and now Sengoku has their top laner to decide. Of course, the option is still available to send the Trundle towards a solo lane. Not very commonly seen, but for the most part, of course, Trundle is sort of safe in that jungle position, as Jace is going to be locked in here from the side of Sengoku. So a bit of action coming out from this top lane right away. And this is sort of interesting on the side of DFM here, as Heimerdinger's going to be locked up. And DFM's comp kind of plays two ends of the ballpark here. Between Heimer, Aphelios, and Kindred, it's very difficult to kind of push in and knock down any of the side of DFM. Advancing in general on that kind of a comp is just very, very difficult. However, the Yuumi can pair with the Aatrox somewhat nicely to roll forward and kind of snowball in, although it doesn't have the most support behind it. And the downside to it is the Aatrox is not going to be doing a whole lot of rolling on into the face of an Azir. And an a Trundle with no better target to ultimate than an Aatrox who is just in his face already. Now, of course, the only thing not a huge fan of on the side of Sengoku is, of course, this Jace pickup. The nice thing, of course, is that it does offer you Shockwave, does offer you a little bit of poke. But later into this game, both of these top laners decay very quickly. The sort of beneficial part for the side of Sengoku is it is much easier for a Trundle to get an early gank off on this top side, but any advantage accrued up there and starting to move throughout the map is where this game could easily blow wide open on either side. This will be one that's in it for the long haul, but as we load in here, this is one of those games you can expect to enjoy a bit of lull states in the meantime, as a lot of this game will be spent sort of any CS leads will just slowly be held onto, especially any early kills. You can expect a lot of these comps to wait to scale. 1 or 2 extra kills in your back pocket will just mean you get to your items first. Start to snowball that into a couple objectives. Expect to see souls taken in this game before any real fights break out. But that's sort of reminiscent of how their series went in the earlier on in the playoffs. There was low kills early on, slight gold leads, one team fight that just ended the game, and from there, it's the sort of funny enough that it is Sengoku that would do this. It's that sort of samurai style of it only takes one draw of the blade, and whoever bleeds the other first It's as quick as it's over.
ゲーム時間が伸びていけば伸びていくほど戦国ゲーミングの方が有利になっていくのかなという風な印象を受けてますね。ただ今回の構成ですと、やはりそれ通りというんですかね。かなり序盤からデトネーション
Once again, for everyone joining, do appreciate you guys tuning in. Feel free to drop a follow, as I will be doing all of these playoff finals, as I also do the summer split coming up after, of course, the in-between break. We'll be doing all of the LJL English commentaries, as I have done all of the spring split so far, and we'll be uploading most of those to my YouTube, or at least all the ones that I currently have. Predictions for this series, as I do have to hand it to Sengoku, but we'll see if they prove me right.
LJL 2020. Brought to you by Ipopitande, the LJL official drink partner. Game on.
さあ始まりました LJL2020 スプリングスプリットファイナルゲーム1プレゼンテッドバイリポビタンデー戦国ゲーミング VS デトネーションフォーカスミースタートです。
Alright, and as we load in immediately, the first few things that come to mind is Opperman opting into the phase rush on Jace is a little bit interesting. Does kind of help out with those short trades in the sort of Aatrox matchup where you can hammer form in, you can get the flip onto him, utilize the knock-up and have the extra movements, or knockback, excuse me, and have the extra have the extra movement speed to get out of the way before Aatrox is able to use a QE to get back onto you. So, does help in the lane matchup quite a bit. And this is an advancement we've seen recently, is the phase rush on Trundle jungles. It's been picking up a notable amount of priority. Now, for this draft specifically, I definitely feel like DFM sort of got the better end of making this Trundle not exactly have the best time. It's very difficult for this Trundle to get a whole lot of value out of realistically anything. It's pushing into the lines of DFM is just very difficult. That is a lot of damage that Trundle has to ultimately walk through before he's able to get anything done. Alternatively, though, the pillar does kind of force separation in the lines of DFM and possibly catching one out to the side. If NT is on his game and able to capitalize off of these separations very well, dividing them and conquer is exactly how Sengoku will be able to play out these team fights. But it will remain to be seen. Of course, that's all sort of conjecture on how these fights will break down. The ideal scenarios for both sides as Trundle pathing away from the top side, so is going to head on to his bottom side, and it looks like Steel, hanging out on this bottom side, wants to take the lower end of the crab as he looks around towards the mid lane. Will get a ward onto Blank, but immediately cleared away so that Blank can help keep tabs. That will be Steel's cue to rotate up towards the top side to make sure he gets a crab, as Blank going to run right across mid here. Was waiting to see which of the two crabs Steel was going to be getting. Tumbles over the wall. It's a little bit dangerous for DFM to try and chase, but they will be backed off of it for now. Blank going to have his lanes rotate to make sure you can keep the Kindred away from her marks as long as possible. And now Blank is in a little bit of an interesting position, and it looks like he will take advantage of it. Wandering into the jungle here will help kind of take a few camps away from Steel, who is going to wander into the jungle here. Blank does not seem to know, but we'll find him out. The pillar is used. A Blank, I don't believe, could get around the corner there, and now is forced to run away. Steel going very low, but Pyrion is going to be the one who's turned on, as he's going to be forced to flash away. Blank actually not having to burn his flash away. It's Pyrion who suffers for the sins of his jungler. As Blank taking a greedy back, Steel going to chase him down there. That is not a great sign for Pyrion. You're wandering forward, but that's exactly what it is you cannot walk forward onto this comp. Seros, even before level 6, just controls too much space on that Heimerdinger. Pyrion will be forced to burn teleport as well to make sure he can get back to the lane in time, as Opperman will do his best to collect this wave on the top side. With first Drake spawning up, another one of the difference makers in this jungle matchup is their ability to have solo pressure on the Drake. Steel will kind of need to keep tabs on it, but Kindred is not the best champion when it comes to soloing out a Drake. While Trundle, of course, can kind of sneak away with it, it'll be really on Steel to be the one who's checking up on it all the time. As you can see, Steel already waiting to get tabs on it. Blank going to drop a pink ward in there, and great use of the pillar just to aggro the Drake there, forcing Steel away from that pink ward, but we'll be able to get there after the reset. Both ADs enjoying just a bit of time spent farming in this bot lane, but it looks like DFM are going to make the call to start up the Drake. DetonatioN is a little bit too low mana to try and look for something here, but members of Sengoku are walking in. Drake resetting will give them a little bit of extra time, as Blank considering going over the wall, ready on that blast cone. But it looks like DFM are trying to back away for now. They're seeing what they can get Sengoku to bite into, as they will go in for it. The smite comes through just a little bit too early. Blank is going to get that one off with an auto. Blank did not even use his own smite there. Actually, I believe that was Steel smite who went off first, leaving it at 72 HP and a bite from the Trundle. But will trade first blood over to Steel there. And that is that is certainly a trade that you can take from the position of Sengoku, but is not exactly... It's a little bit of an iffy one. Is the Ocean Drake, of course, does offer a little bit of help towards your lanes, as a lot of these are very just stagnant, but as I say that, Pyrion says no. Pyrion says he's ready for some action, as he gets a nice shuffle there into Blank's column, as Opperman's going to be able to get out of that one fairly uncontested. Flash still available. Evi not going to force flash for flash on that account. And a great kill from Pyrion over to Seros. We'll give first blood over to Blank, so kind of makes up the goal that he lost from having that first play happen. So Pyrion goes all in on the engage here. He sees Blank coming in, knows he's going to get there with the knockup. Will buy him enough time as Seros flashes away, almost knocks down Pyrion with a extra little barrage from the Heimer turrets, but just barely not enough. And of course, as first backs come out from this bot lane, you can see both of the bot lanes immediately making their way over to that Rift Herald. And this is something that has kind of been criticized in the past, is having these 5-man rotations over to Rift Heralds. And with no clear leader in sight, both teams can kind of opt into this, but is a bit dangerous. Pyrion trying to get over here, but the final chapter goes down. The bullet time is just going to tear through Steel before he even stands a chance. Over the wall goes Udapon, will be able to knock down Opperman. 1 for 1 in this fight so far. The Q from the Yuumi will slow Blank, but not keep him locked up long enough. As Pyrion going to go low, forced to back away from Saros, who did use the ultimate on the other end of that fight. Pyrion and Saros sort of having their own duel in the meantime. But a kill going over to Yutapon. And Yutorimayashi picking up one of his own. Kills are staying pretty much as even as they can, but Pyrion's looking for a solo kill now. Saros being a bit greedy without his flash. Pyrion is a master of this Shurima shuffle, and Saros either not respecting it or just not having the reactions to drop a stun on his way in. Will end up falling again, this time to a solo kill from Pyrion. And we'll watch the way this fight breaks out one more time. DFM try to back up towards his top side, waiting to collapse onto Opperman here. But the final chapter is coming in, but that is not, it's not exactly like Sengoku need to advance much further. The bullet time has a huge range, and with Kindred no level 6, will just sort of fall out of that one. And then, of course, Saros here walks forward, uses E on the wave. Pyrion possibly just recognized that he didn't have it. Saros walking up for really no reason. A W poke when ultimately he would be looking for a back there. Wouldn't have received much value. Possibly trying to force out, see if he can grab a turret plate early, but definitely an interesting decision from Saros to opt so hard in for just a stray W. Either way, that will be Pyrion picking up a kill, and now, with Pyrion scoring a solo kill of his own, it is the only kill that sort of didn't go equally on either ends of the map. So far, both junglers got a kill, both ADs got a kill. That's about as even as you can ask for, but Pyrion looking to break the mold a bit here and tip the scales in his favor. Now, Infernal Drake spawning up, and it looks like Sengoku have inside track for this one. But you can see Steel waiting over the walls. DFM can opt in for another fight around this, but is it really beneficial for them at this point? Steel can possibly go over the wall here just to look for a Steel opportunity, as Enti's going to find a great death sentence, flay him in, but Steel has the ultimate to buy himself some time. He is going to get away with a Drake, as Enti now trying to look out to the top side, but Saros is there. Evi's going to find him with a Q, and Blank, forced to run away, doesn't have flash available, excuse me, and will fall to Evi with a great teleport finding 2 there. DFM now getting the better end of these objective fights, and with you find a good death sentence from Enti onto Steel there, and you pull him in, but bursting him out before he's able to use the ultimate just did not come in, as Evi is going to look for an opportunity here onto Opperman. W missing will deter that situation for now. But that is a great pickup for DFM now, with Evi being a bit ahead in this top lane. Not where you want to see the Jace, as he does kind of now start to not be as easily relevant in this one. But Steel surviving with a sliver of HP is what makes all the difference in this one. Then, at that point, they're backing up into a Heimerdinger. There is nowhere really safe to run for the two champions that can't get over walls as easily. And DFM kind of played both ends of the fight really well, and an excellent TP in from Evi will spell curtains for that fight. Now, 1 kill lead to DFM. And in the wake of that, you start to really see how both of these teams not only are just punishing these mistakes very well, but both of these teams are keeping it as even as humanly possible. Every time you're able to eke out one advantage, the onus goes back on the other to just try and pull a little bit back. It's a game of inches, not miles in this one, as neither team is going to give up a clean ace anytime soon in this game. For the side of DFM, however, Steel will need to be careful, as that death sentence could have been just that for the Kindred. With Yutoromayashi only going to get stronger, and those love taps only going to do more damage. And auto Q will easily burst through steel. Although likely, of course, Kindred will be looking towards the cleaver build, picking up a little bit of extra HP stats just to make sure that Steel can survive long enough to get towards the ultimate. But had Opperman been there, just adding that little bit of extra damage, that fight goes very differently for Sengoku. So now, first item completed on both ADs here. The sort of benefit for Opperman in this top lane is, of course, the lethality items. Having a little bit of a lower gold point is able to reach some of his spike items a little bit sooner. But when it comes to these later ended splits, Opperman, of course, will have his work cut out for him to match Evi in a long lane. So it looks like Sengoku looking for an opportunity. No vision on the side of DFM. They're looking for 4 men strong down here. Q going to find NT as he walks out of the brush here. Looks for an opportunity, but Steel is ready for the counter gank. Will Sengoku all in on this? Steel will have ultimate available here. Q going to land onto NT as he's going to back up towards the top side. Yutoromayashi and NT realizing something might be wrong here. As Blank goes in, the pillar is good onto Yutapon, but he might just be able to back out of this one, and now Steel kind of caught in an interesting position. Will just opt to back, possibly? No, he's sticking around here, but the final chapter comes in. Root is good, and Yutoromayashi is not going to be able to get out in time. The lantern no good to a rooted target as a great stun off the bouncing grenade from Saros there, but will only get NT's flash out of that one. And so far, it seems to be DFM getting the better end of a couple of these, with already Evi grabbing a number of turret plates to something that should be a lane bully in the top side. Sengoku are going to need to find a way back into this one, and as it seems right now, Steel is the one who's getting the better end of a couple of these counter ganks, but also utilizing this Kindred very effectively. And that's one of those plays that really burns the side of Sengoku, where not only do you not get anything off of the gank attempt that they had no vision of, should have been able to work, but a death sentence going to find Evi will cut me off there. Ultimate down from Steel, but they're both very low HP. As the bullet time comes through, not going to be able to land onto Evi long enough, as the Moonlight Vigil will deter him for now. Possibly a re-engage opportunity here for Sengoku. Pyrian still has R available if he wants to look for something, but it looks like DFM are going to make the call to back off. Hand over this Cloud Drake for now. Not exactly the best users of a Cloud Soul on the side of Sengoku. But grabbing up an extra Drake never hurts, but losing that first mid turret does. First turret going over to the side of DFM, while Yutoromayashi gets a little bit of time to solo farm in this bot lane. But Sengoku, this is a one item Azir. He cannot exactly just shred through the lanes as easily as he wants to, especially while the rest of Sengoku are trying to find their way around the lines to their own turret there. Yutoromayashi doing his best to pick up as much gold in this bot lane as he can. If you're going to have your AD off splitting, you might as well make sure that he's getting all the gold that he can muster. As Sengoku realize they're going to need it going forward. As we sort of return to the neutral state once more. The notable thing is Opperman, of course, still does have TP advantage, but ultimately he's held TP advantage throughout this series so far. Even after Evi had a great TP there, Opperman held his TP,
完成すると一気に
and
強力になっていくので
ultimately, what did it really net him? Nothing. I don't actually believe that he even used the teleport in that time. So
としてはその狙いの
you don't match Evi off of the teleport into the fight that ends up netting Evi a lot of netting Evi a lot. He got 2 kills off of it, gives him towards his cleaver first, as well as just giving him an option for the fight going forward. He already has the top lane turret down due to the extra pressure he's gotten out of that one. And what does Opperman have to show for it? What does his Jace pickup have to show? You drafted a champion that is going to decay. You need to be able to make advantage of him before that happens. And right now it feels as though Evi is the only one who is able to make use of it.
このタイミング
Immediately spawned up and started up is the Rift Herald on the side of Sengoku. They will be able to not... I don't think they actually got that one out in time as Baron on time for that 20-minute mark. Sengoku not going to be able to get away with a free Rift Herald, as
AI の勝利予想ですか
ultimately for now, Opperman is left to battle it out against Zeros in the side lanes,
になってますね
picking up a couple of those waves. As
僕もそんなに大きな
the next objective coming up is, of course, that Cloud Drake, and Sengoku multiple times now posturing aggressively, specifically for those Drakes.
まあ有利ではあると思いますがまだ60、40
This will possibly be a breaking point for this game, as
すごい結果になりましたね
if Sengoku are overly aggressive on grabbing this Drake and overly aggressive when it comes to trying to force into this sole objective,
そしてユタボン選手重要だったハリケーン
if DFM get the better end of another objective fight, that may be too much for Sengoku to battle back from. The gold lead, although in DFM's favor, is not impossible to overcome. Only about a 2k gold lead,
が獲得すれば3体目の
and is not exactly the most detrimental position to battle back from.
渡すことになると今後の展開
But Sengoku can only afford for it to get so much wider before
確実に行うべき
just the high level of these teams come into play, and they're not giving up those kinds of mistakes anymore.
本当にもうすでに人数を集めて
Trying to grab up mid lane pressure for now. Knocking down the mid lane turret would be nice, but Sengoku knows that the pressure is really towards his Cloud Drake for now.
エビ選手が合流しないと
About 35 seconds to its name.
チャンピオンがいない
And it looks like on the opposite end, or on the top and bottom ends of the map, it looks like lanes are pushing against DFM, although very slowly.
これでエンティ選手の位置が見えましたからねこれで安全に
Will not leave DFM too pressured for now, but Sengoku can wait on that as a condition. As I say that though, I believe
ワードの破壊にも
actually DFM are the ones who are
サイドに流れていって
have the lanes pushing in their favor. Of course, the action at hand is really what's concerning both teams here, as the turrets are just used for scouting, the W's for poke. Death Sentence goes out, finds nothing, but a shockwave onto Utapon will force out one of the heals from the Yumi.
弓を取ったことによるアドバン
It's a lot of healing to try and get through onto Utapon though, and they know he's very important to this comp, but the overall just amount of zone control on the side of DFM, Sengoku are just struggling to look for opportunities here.
まだ差は
Pillar goes up, but Sengoku are not finding their way in. They make the call to loop down towards this bottom side.
あとはゲーム1取った方がかなり有利と
So the Shockwave finds his way onto Steel, half HP onto him.
今度このドレイク前を取りま
That
した
is the target that kind of needs to be focused the most with his pokes, but Sengoku are all inning on the Drake here, going down very low. The ultimate will buy the Drake some time, drags it out. The smite is up, but Kindred's going to get the better end of that one. And Sengoku immediately backing away will only cost Blank his flash.
の執行猶予
But that is Cloud Drake over to DFM, as they're going to look immediately onto this Baron. Most likely will just be going for Vision, but
かなり戦国ゲーミングがよ
they can look for an opportunity here, as Sengoku do not know that they'll be on it. And Blank is taking a very late reset. Sengoku might not know that this Baron is happening. They're getting suspicious now, but it might be too late. 2000 HP to its name. They're going to actually sneak away with the Baron right under the noses of Sengoku. Immediately, Blank burning that flash over a Cloud Drake ends up costing them the Baron. And now, DFM You trade one mid turret and mid turret that none of the members of Sengoku are able to capitalize off of. Nobody got any gold for it. But with Baron now sitting in your back pocket, DFM have really all the pressure in the world. There's no objectives up. They can push forward siege with those Heimerdinger turrets, knowing full well that Sengoku cannot engage on their comp. Setting up the side lanes once more before they group up into this mid lane. DetonatioN will push back the waves for now. But this is a harrowing position for Sengoku if DFM decide they want to get aggressive with this Baron now.
そうですね、このままの展開ですと、ここまで見えてたんですかね。バロンを獲得するところまでですか？かなり先見の目がある。
Seros baiting around a bit, seeing if anyone is rotating down for him, but as it stands right now, most of the members of Sengoku will be needed for this mid lane defense. The saving grace, of course, is Pyrion, a very good lane clear champ. If you absolutely need to, DetonatioN can utilize the bullet time to burn down the waves. So DFM possibly won't be able to pressure a whole lot, and especially won't be able to pressure a whole lot if they spend a lot of time waiting around in bushes to see where Sengoku rotates, but DFM will be able to knock down a top lane tier 1 here. 3 members of Sengoku. Moonlight Vigil's going to land a root, but Pyrion escaping out on that one. Not going to get in harm's way on that account. Bullet time going to be used here. Evi goes forward for a knock-up. The W chain will yank him back, but nothing that really DFM can capitalize off of just yet. No last chapter used on that account. Gang doing its best to just keep Aphelios safe. You can play to Evi and you can look for an engage, but right now keeping that Aphelios online and doing the amount of damage that we know him for is really going to be what makes a difference. As you can see, immediately heal steal back onto the Aphelios. They know who the carry is in this scenario and they're willing to play around it. Sengoku are slowly losing turret HP to the siege, but now Baron is turning off. DFM lose a bit of their pressure from that. They're going to back away, scour away the jungle camps, clear away some of their own, and then prepare for this Cloud Drake. Now, if you are DFM, I would have liked to have seen possibly a little bit more out of that Baron play. Kind of sat idly for a little bit there, but not extending, not overextending, really. It's definitely... There's... Cautious play would not go amiss when you are playing a team that has already taken a best of 5 series from you. So erring on the side of caution as DFM make their way towards this dragon pit, spawning up. DFM a little bit close for comfort here, but still has tumble to get away over the wall. NT not going to find a hook there. Sengoku Gaming holding on to as much of the vision as they can, taking their favorite position around the mid lane. Evi's on a good flank here if he decides to rotate up. But it looks like Sengoku are going to immediately start up the Drake. Very greedy for these objectives, but this one is going down very quickly. That is going to be Blank picking that one up, as now Evi might be on the wrong end of this. Death Sentence going to land with the column there. He's going to utilize the Shurima Shuffle to push him back into the lines. Very low are the members of DFM, but the Kindred ulti coming up huge in that one will ultimately save the lives of many a member of DFM there. And this feels increasingly difficult for Sengoku. This Kindred ultimate is just buying so much time and bailing out DFM time and time again. That easily could have been a bad situation for Sengoku, but Steel getting there in time for the ultimate will end up saving the day.
すぐさま取り切ることに先行ゲーミング成功しましたね。自分たちのそのオブジェクトを取る速さというのを生かしてのプレーになりました先行ゲーミング。さあそしてバロンアップまだ30秒切っているこのタイミング先行ゲーミングフランクと
Now as we sort of return to the lull state one more, Sengoku needs to operate in this time in between the Kindred ultimate to try and take advantage of it. The sort of nice thing about stacking up a couple of these Cloud Drakes is, of course, ult CDR like that typically goes a little bit amiss or unnoticed in pro play, as a lot of the fights are usually centered around objective timers, which every dragon in about 5 minutes you are more than likely to have your ultimate available for it. But when you're trying to play around punishing ultimate cooldowns, but it looks like NT is the one who's going to be punished here for getting an overly ambitious on a death sentence there, forces his flash out. But what I was going to try and get at is, you have to kind of punish DFM around this Kindred ultimate that they're putting so much dependency on. You have to be able to punish the gaps in between that ultimate cooldown, and being able to burn a bullet time to get the Kindred ultimate and then relying on the extra ult CDR to have it back up the next time you need it is a great sort of benefit that might not have been looked at in most scenarios, as an extra 30% ult CDR doesn't always add up to insane value. Looks like Opperman rotating down for this bot lane does have TP on him, so we'll be able to get back in time for this Baron if anything happens. Pyrion coming over the wall here, finding a huge chunk on Aceros. Gang going to help him out of there, as Blank going to be zoned back from Steel. Now, Pyrion doing a decent chunk of damage and taking a bit of control in that situation has deterred DFM's Baron opportunity for now. Blank waiting on his sweeper cooldown to see if he can get in there, but ultimately trying to just be a human ward in that bush before anyone is able to wander in. And it feels so difficult for Sengoku to try and engage on anything on the side of DFM. There's just so many defensive tools in their comp's pockets, as well as almost a 4k gold advantage. Blank going to eat a bit of poke wandering in between the river and mid lane here. A huge shockwave onto Udapon leaves him at about a half HP, but we'll be able to heal that up in no time at all, thanks to the friendly book-loving cat attached at his hip. Tomoyashi doing his best to try and push in mid for a little bit of priority there. Sengoku does have waves pushing for them in the bot side, but Steel might be found out here. Great ultimate used. Looks like Opperman tries to go for a knockout there to see if he can push Kindred away, but the ultimate is down. Now is the opportunity that Sengoku can look for. You've burned the Kindred ultimate. How do you make the most use of it? For now, Pyrion walking into the bot lane will go over to pick up a bit of that wave. And it looks like Sengoku will just use that as deterrent before anything happens. Is NT going to be routed up towards the top side, seeing a few rotations coming in? And as both teams take a reset here, Baron Vision in control by DFM, Sengoku are somewhat willing to let that go. Of course, you cannot leave it unwarded. You saw DFM sneak away with the Baron last time, and it's only going to get stronger from there, so you can't afford that many more times. Of course, though, Sengoku are going to look at this Cloud Soul as their next point of order. DFM know this. They're going to look hard for a fight here. Blank doing his best to frontline, but the final chapter is in. That is Pyrion going gold and just trying to buy time, as he's going to eventually get out towards the backside. Opperman finds two, but now Aphelios is here dealing huge chunks of damage. A triple kill going for a quadra. Blank is over the wall here. It looks like Udapon is going to try and chase him down. Has Yumin to give him a little extra heals, as they might be looking for him. Giving him the penta in game one would be a great way to look out for this one, as Udapon going all in. Gang is here to help him out, but the pillar slow might be good enough to make sure Blank is able to get to safety. And in a fight that almost looked good for the side of Sengoku, Aphelios just comes in and cleans house. We'll watch this one more time as Blank does his best to frontline for now. NT is in the front lines utilizing the CC he has, but you cannot ignore Udapon here. The flamethrower Moonlight Vigil does so much damage, and there is no punching past a Yumi Aphelios combo with GA and the Severum up. There's just too much healing that is impossible to get around. Udapon comes up huge in that one, and DFM are going to sneak away with one more Baron. Looks like Blank going to try and stop a couple backs here. Udapon caught out, but that is a lot of damage to try and burst them through. The rest of DFM have returned, and it looks like Udapon is just going to find two for free. Sengoku want to try and stop Aphelios. You want to try and knock him down, but there is a Yumi and a GA and plenty of friends between them and that. DFM are just proving their dominance on this Aphelios. Really, Udapon is just running up the stat count for his Aphelios. This is going to be game end most likely as DFM try to siege down this turret. Blank has to do so much if he wants to try and keep any of them at bay. Pyrian only at about half HP, cannot even afford to go to the fountain to heal. He will find Steel, who just did not use his ultimate, did not expect to take that much damage, but Pyrian's taking a ton of damage now, forced to back away there. Evi going low, but not low enough to save this game as Sengoku going to drop down as DFM take this series to 1-0. And that's sort of... It's sort of exactly what you expect from DFM. We've seen time and time again that two things hold true. Is one, the Heimerdinger needs to be banned, and two, you cannot let this team have Aphelios. Just too strong of a champion. Udapon is too capable on it. I would love to actually see DFM specifically their win rate with Aphelios in their hands. It feels like every game you see it, Udapon is piloting that Aphelios to victory. And going forward, Sengoku will have a couple clear target bans. And ultimately, there weren't even... There was a couple mistakes in the draft that could have gone a little bit better. But really, it comes down to you cannot let DFM have the style that they want. They want the scaling, wait-and-see style, and having a bunch of defensive tools to deter engages from the enemy team is a great way to go about it when you know you're going to be outscaling a Jace. You know that the Trundle is not going to have a tank that he can reap a lot of value out of. The blind pick Trundle has to go, but Sengoku will have a lot to think about going into their next pick and bans. This was also a fairly interesting one as the smite came in just a little bit early, and it almost felt like Blank got a little bit of, dare I say, almost dumb luck in that kind of scenario where he didn't even bother to use his smite. Ended up just queuing the Baron out, or excuse me, the Dragon out. Now, the sort of points I want to highlight in this series for Sengoku going forward is, of course, Pyrian playing very well on this Azir. Even playing the early game very well, which is typically harder to do on the Zilean, who more so regarded for his late game carry capabilities. While Pyrian is coming up huge in this fight, you don't have a dedicated tank for the Azir to stand behind and start doing damage. You don't have a platform to really enable him or Yotorimayashi on the Misfortune. When you're drafting a round 1 Trundle, you're refusing to just draft the Ornn that went unpicked, unbanned. For a Jace that ultimately did not receive a ton of value throughout this series, or throughout this game 1. So Sengoku have a couple things to think about moving forward, as Felios quite the champion of this game 1 here. When we come back, of course, GFM will be on the blue side going forward here, so they will have first. If they get first pick, you can more than bet that it will be going over to specifically that Aphelios. So Sengoku, at least in the next game, will be forced to ban it out. Or at least you would hope to see that for their chances in this next game. Going to take a quick break, going to go refill my water for a minute. Don't go anywhere, and as we'll be here for the rest of this series.